and I created this program, and it was nuts. 57x ROI right out of the gate. Sales happened so much faster. It was crazy. All these people I never thought would come back came back.
You are listening to the Delivering with Agility podcast. Helping you to leverage the power of persuasion to deliver the most valuable outcomes for your business sooner. If you work in leadership, coaching, marketing, sales, or agile teams, this podcast is for you. Don't miss out. Subscribe now and gain a smart advantage over your competitors. Here's your host, Carl Adamson.
My guest today is founder of Winback Labs, host of Winback Marketing Podcast, and the author of $1 Million Winback. One and only maestro of Winback, Dan Pfister. Hi, Dan. It's great to see you. You know I love what you do. The maestro of Winback. Tell us all about you.
Well, my name is Dan Pfister. I help companies win back their lost customers. You know, they're a tremendous source of untapped revenue, and that's what I focus on.
Tell us what Winback is. Lots of people have different ideas on this. What's your definition of Winback?
Winback is rekindling a relationship that once existed. So at one time you had a relationship with a customer. They trusted you enough to buy from you, and they valued your product enough to buy from you. So win back is simply coming back into that customer's life, offering them value that they are looking for now, maybe if you didn't offer it to them before, and getting that business back. Like you spent so much time, money, and effort acquiring that customer and creating that relationship and delivering that value, and doing that again, like rekindling that relationship, is so much easier than starting from scratch with a new relationship.
How, in your opinion, do people feel about Winback when you talk to them about it?
A lot of people, they're very skeptical. They don't think that their past customers will come back. That's number one. The second thing is they're afraid of what they'll hear if they go back to their past customers. They're afraid that they'll get some negative emotions thrown at them. And it's amazing, but I've won back thousands of lost customers, and I've never had anything untoward happen. Of course, you've got to approach people well, right? And even if somebody is really unhappy with you, or just moderately unhappy, you want to talk to them, right? You want to fix whatever is fixable, because here's the thing: people talk to people. They can talk on one-to-one in peer groups. They can talk about you on LinkedIn. They can talk about you on Trustpilot. There's all these places they can talk about you. Why don't you let them talk to you first? Get that off their chest. You try to fix it, and maybe you can even heal a relationship. Like, the thing is that there's something called the peak end rule that Nobel Prize-winning economist named Daniel Kahneman. He wrote a book called Thinking Fast and Slow, and he created something called the peak end rule. And what it basically says is that the way that we remember an experience is by the peak of the experience and the end of the experience. Well, if somebody left you because they were unhappy, the last experience they had of you was that end experience. So that has a disproportionately large impact on how they feel about you. So if you reach out again and you say, "We're sorry that things went sideways, we take responsibility, and we want to make things better," well, now you've created this new end experience. And so that will make them feel better about you. And then if you actually take action and try to make things better, they'll feel even better about you, because it kicks in something called the pratfall effect. And what the pratfall effect says is that if you have a problem with someone or about something, and you actually try to fix it, and you do fix it, you're actually seen as more competent because you're able to fix the issue. And you're also more likable. So when you combine the pratfall effect with the peak end rule, you've got this massive amount of human psychology working in your favor. So what I found is so often is that relationships are actually strengthened through adversity. So if somebody had a problem with you and you fix the problem, on some level, you've been through something together. These people actually become more loyal. There was a study done by Marriott Hotels, and what they found was that customers or guests who came on board and they had a good experience, 89% of them said that they would come back. People who had a negative experience or who had a problem, only 69% would come back. Well, of course, that makes sense, right? A lot of people aren't going to come back if they had a bad experience. But what was it really interesting is that people who had a problem that was fixed, they were 94%. They said 94% of them said that they would come back. So you actually create a bigger bond with someone if they have a problem and you fix it. It's really interesting. So don't be afraid of your unhappy customers.
So what I'm hearing is that Winback is very much tied into human emotion.
100%. And we've got it working against us because we don't want to go and experience a negative emotion by reaching out to somebody who might be upset with us. So we avoid that. And my contention is that that's costing you a lot of money, and it's a false assumption.
Well, the other thing I'm hearing, you were talking about a customer that's had a bad experience, and you fix that experience for them, and then they become 94% saying we'll come back.
Yeah.
Now, there must be something. I'm really fascinated with the behavioral science behind this, the psychology, and I'm wondering how much of that is reciprocity. You've done something for them to fix the problem, so they now reciprocate with
Yeah.
loyalty.
Yeah. I think reciprocity is a big thing. I think another big thing is, we all want to be heard and validated and understood, and we want to be cared. Like we want, if a customer has a problem with something that you did and you reach out and you show empathy, you show that you care, and you validate how they felt or hear them out. I mean, these are powerful things that all humans want, right? So, so there is a lot there. There is a lot there because, I mean, how do you feel when somebody tries to fix a problem? They care enough to come back and say, listen, things went sideways. Let's figure out where they went sideways and let's see if we can fix things. That's very powerful.
It's amazing because I've experienced this personally, and I know we've shared stories in the past. There's some stories I haven't shared where when you do go to a customer, there was a particular problem customer that we had in one of the firms I was working for. No one wanted to talk to him because he was always complaining. He was always complaining because we couldn't supply him the stock because we were always out of stock. And you've got a customer that's got customers that want to buy the product and we can't provide it at the height of the season. He was really angry. And it just so happened that where his shop was next door to the train station that I went to work via. And so I popped in there, had a chat with him. I asked for the product and the product wasn't available. I knew that. And had a little chat and got him to explain his feelings on it. And I said, well, I'll tell you who I am. And with that, immediately I got a barrage coming forward. I said, but I've come in to see what I can do to help you. And straight away, all of that anger melted. And cut a long story short, he became one of our best customers. We obviously had to fix our problem with the warehouse and make sure we were able to supply him. But he was threatening to leave and go to the next major competitor. But we became friends. I'd go in there and get something deliberately just to say hello to him on the way to work in the station. It was a newsagent, and we were selling ice cream into that newsagent, all the businesses all over the country. So what I really do understand what you mean when someone's got a problem that's not been addressed, and then you can come in after they've left and say, well, look, how can I help? What can I do? Suddenly there is a strong bond that you build. It's that making up thing is really powerful.
Yeah. Relationships are strengthened through adversity. It's so true. And even though I haven't experienced the sort of thing that you did, it's like my issue is always trying to get people to open up. Like, why did you leave it? And creating a space that is where they feel that they can share exactly what the problems were. Because unless you understand the problem, you can't fix the problem, right? So I'm always trying to understand, why did a customer leave for real? And what will it take to win them back? And then we test those hypotheses. That's what makes the win back effective, right?
What is the main obstacle that people have with win back, apart from the emotion and the fear of getting a negative kickback from the lost customer? There seem to be other reasons why companies aren't keen to just jump in and do it.
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest things is cultural, not how we do things here. And your story, your big story about your first big win back, just highlights that perfectly. And it'd be great if you would share that. And and the other thing is, what's rewarded in a company, right? So if like, not many CEOs are going to go to the, like, when a CEO goes to their private equity firm or their VC firm, they want to hear, how many net new logos have you got, right? They don't want to hear, how many customers did you win back, or so. So the CEO is motivated to do that. I think they're going to get a salesperson who's going to work on that basis. They're going to get a marketing person who works on that basis. So it's going to be, well, I guess that comes right back to culture. So it becomes ingrained in the culture. And there's not much talked about with Winback. Like, I had to do a study to find what the numbers actually were for SMBs, because there just weren't numbers. I mean, the last people who did a serious work that was publicly available, that gave a wide range of data, was the work that Michael Lowenstein and Jill Griffin did back in 1998 or 1999.
Oh yes, that's probably the only win-back book that's available at the
It is.
moment.
There's a couple of books that say Winback in the title, but they aren't Winback books.
Yeah, yeah. It's quite interesting because I attended Guru conference last week, which is
Ah, right.
the biggest virtual email marketing conference on the planet. There were 24,000 attendees at that, and there was quite a lot of talk about Winback in there. And I was
Really?
thinking, yeah, as soon as they said that, I thought, where's Dan? Dan should be here. So that's another story. But there a lot of people are now starting to talk about it. But as far as having a reference to what Winback is all about and how to do it, there aren't any books apart from that one that you kind of indicated
Hmm.
available. And obviously, we're here because you've just written one. So tell us all about that,
Maybe if I can just give you a bit of the story, the to
please do.
precede, like a little bit of the background, my background. Myself and two other people started a company a number of years ago called the Business Source, and what we did, it was a subscription-based business. And by about 2016, we'd grown pretty decently. We had generated over 50,000 customers. And in 2016, the wheels started to come off. Like, churn was just going up and up and up, and that was my job. That was my area. So I had to. It was my job to fix it, and I didn't. We reached out to past customers. We'd sent out. It was pretty sporadic, but we reached out with like an offer or an email from time to time. It wasn't strategic at all. So one of my partners said, Dan, she kind of held my feet to the fire. You've really got to do more than that. And I said, well, we reach out already. This is not a good prospect pool. We've got to get Steve to work much harder, get his people working much harder on new customer acquisition. So anyway, long story short, I had to do one. I did one. I just threw everything I knew about marketing into the pot, and I created this program, and it was nuts. 57x ROI right out of the gate. Sales happened so much faster. It was crazy. All these people I never thought would come back came back. I became enamored with it. So I took that process, I optimized it over the next couple of years, and I want to learn more. So I did a study, and we got 170 people who did Winback contributed to the study. And man, was it hard to find people who did Winback. It was. I reached out to over 5,000 people for the study. So, well, me and Mike. So I did that, and then I still wanted to learn more, because it was just like, this is a very, very rich topic. And so I started the podcast, and so I got to talk to more really smart people who've done Winback, such as yourself. And you've got to tell your story about the culture, because that's a tremendous story. So I'm doing the podcast, and I thought, well, there's so much here, And so I thought, what if I wrote a book? What if I took everything that I've learned and put it into a volume? And that's what I've done. And the book is coming out October 30th of 2024.
What's the book called?
The book is called $1 Million Winback: How to Win More Sales in Less Time and at a Lower Cost Using the Winback Marketing Framework.
Fantastic. And that's available on the 30th of October,
Yeah,
2024
on Amazon.
on Amazon.
Yeah.
Okay. And how much is the book?
The book is $19.95. I think that's what it's discounted to. I'm only selling on Amazon for 90 days, but the book is free October 30th and 31st.
That's why I asked. So the book is free. The book is free. On the 30th of October, you can get the book without buying it free. And that
Yes.
book is like gold. It's certainly worth its weight in gold. Can you just give me some figures on Winback that are call out figures? What are the main benefits in numbers about Winback?
Well, the biggest thing about Winback, like the things that people tend to focus on, is the revenue. The average small to medium sized business generates $485,000. When you get to larger companies, the revenue goes up into the millions. And when you get into huge companies like Starbucks and Netflix, it gets into the tens of millions. And there's two reasons why Winback is such a big moneymaker. The first thing is large numbers of past customers will come back if you approach them strategically. My study found that on average, 26% came back. There was a study featured in the Harvard Business Review, and it found that 31% of people came back. And so the first step is people come back. And the second thing is that when they come back, they're very big spenders. As a matter of fact, lifetime value more than doubles. That's what my study found, and that's what the study in the Harvard Business Review found. And also, I've won back thousands of lost customers, and on average, the second time around, they spend at least 110% of what they did the first time around. The other thing that makes Winback so compelling is it's very low cost. My study found that it costs less than $5,000 to do a campaign, and it's cheap because your leads are free, right? They're just sitting in your CRM. You don't have to pay, and you don't have to pay people to qualify sales products or educate them or create relationships, because all that work has already been done. All you need to do is rekindle the relationship. So with the large amounts of money Winback brings in and the low cost, you'd think that the ROI would be really high. And it is. For SMBs, the average is 97x. But ROI pretty well ranges from 3x to 180. And it's should I give you a couple of examples of low and high, or
Please
drive on,
do.
Carl? Okay.
Yeah,
So
please do.
okay, so a low ROI, a good example of a low ROI is an HR company, and they did a win back. And in that business, you have to wine and dine entire HR teams. So their win back cost $50,000, but it generated 1.5 million. So the ROI for them was 30x. They had, is very high cost of reacquiring customers. On the other end is a win back Ron Contorno did. I think it's for the Texas Rangers. Could have been the Tigers, but he got about 180x ROI. And the reason that his ROI was so high was because all he did was send out these postcards, brilliant postcards, and they won back huge amounts of money. And so he got 180x. And SMBs tend to be right in the middle, where you might have 2 or 3 forms of outreach, and that's why it's the cost is average is 5K. And these are hard costs. So if they've already got their salespeople working, new leads, they might put them on Winback, or they might just do email outreach and then follow up with phone. But the point is that the cost is very low, the returns are very high, so the ROI is high. And I'll just give you 2 more things. Sales are so much faster. My study showed that they're 3 times faster than acquiring a new customer. And there's a number of reasons for it, but sales cycles are short because so much of the sales work has already been done, right? You don't need to source leads. You've already got them. They're sitting in your CRM. You don't need to qualify them, right? they've already used your product, so you know there's a need. And if they don't need it now, they'll have a need again. They'll probably have a need again in the future. You don't need to educate them on the product. You don't need to build relationships. All that work's already been done. So what we find is that so often that identifying a customer, or taking one customer out of all your prospect pool who will actually end up being a customer, it takes a long time. But with Winback, that's shortened considerably. So I'll just leave it that as the highlights of the numbers. But when you think about those numbers, what do they imply, like for use cases? So with the short sales cycles, right? So if you need to hit targets when time is tight, well, you've got Winback, right? Your sales cycles are so much shorter. And there's that HR company I was telling you about. They had a 9-month sales cycle, and they had a sales target to make. And the marketing manager knew there was no way they were going to make the target, because sales cycles were 9 months, and there's only 6 months to the end of the year. So that's why she started focusing exclusively on Winback, because she had to hit that sales target. If you want to grow your market share, it's a tremendous way of doing that, because that's what it does. This is the lowest hanging fruit in your business. And so it's the most efficient way of growing market share. If you want to grow sales with a tight budget, it's super cheap compared to new customer acquisition. If you want to create near instant pipeline, it's fantastic for that. So if your pipe is half empty, you can go into your CRM, take a look for customers that you had lost that you would like to win back, and start your win back. Those are the highlights.
So when a company decides to do Winback, they start looking at it. The pool that they're looking in is full, bursting with SQL, sales qualified leads, for a start. Secondly, the sales closure rate is faster than with a prospect, someone you haven't worked with before. You've got up to 180% ROI based on the research that you've done. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just that. Is that legal? Can you, I mean, if you offer that to someone, then you say, well, this is possible. We have facts to back that up. Well, it must be illegal, because it's ridiculous. And lastly, the lifetime value is higher than a customer that you've won through the normal sales process.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a no-brainer. An absolute no-brainer.
I've been banging this drum ever since I learned about it, like, with the podcast and with the study, and talking a lot about it on LinkedIn. But we are such creatures of habit, and it's very hard to break out of that habit. And I thought that to educate people on Winback, having the study, having facts and figures would be convincing. Right, that would really start to get some real momentum. I thought Winback might start to catch fire, at least in a couple of groups, and then I thought, okay, so facts don't work. Well, how about emotions? So what I'll do is I'll talk to smart people like you who've got these tremendous stories of winning back lost customers to inspire people. So I've got facts, emotions, like an inspiration, and still haven't hit that tipping point where people are really, really talking about it a lot. I mean, there's acquisition, there's retention, there's expansion, and there's Winback. Like that, it's such an easy thing logically, but emotionally, to get over that hump, to get over the cultural problems, to get over the emotional problems, it's a challenge. And hopefully this book will help. I wrote it in an allegory format so that it's very easy to consume. You follow our hero from having issues with churn, sales going down, win rates going down, finding Winback, ironically on a podcast, listening to about, and then reaching out and starting to do Winback. And her company turns around. In the book, we walk through the 3 phases and 7 steps of Winback. And at the end of the book, there's a gentleman, and he's facing the same problems Victoria faced at the beginning of the book, and she's there and she helps him. And it's just like, so we just have this little cycle. So that's that.
I must admit, I've read the initial draft, and it's amazing. I mean, usually allegories don't resonate with me because I like to get into a non-fictional kind of book with facts and figures and
Hmm.
actionable things. So I didn't know how it was going to work, but it actually hit me quite well. It was back to the coffee shop and we get the next installment of what's happening next and what she's done so far. And I think that's what makes it real. I think what you have in this book will resonate with a lot of people where the facts and the figures haven't. And I think if we go back to what we were talking about earlier and what you just mentioned, emotion, there's a lot of emotion around Winback, perhaps many people give it credit for. And I think for whatever reason, people are holding back, and it is probably because they don't want to face all of the negativity and all of those things. I think there's also a bit of what I've written about before, Semmelweis reflex, where business leaders are given evidence that's completely in their face. You can't dispute the evidence, and yet they reject it
Hmm.
and they carry on doing what they were doing. So with all this money on the table, they're just walking away from it and saying, no, we're going to go and do acquisition. That's all we focus on. And actually, I was doing some consultancy for a company that were literally hemorrhaging money. They were losing customers right, left, and centre. They weren't able to meet the demands of their existing customers. And you looked at this, and I said to them, can we just stop and look at what's going on with churn and see if we can actually plug some of the holes in the leaky bucket? Maybe later we're ready to start winning back some of those customers. And I was told adamantly the answer is no, because the CEO was focused on customer acquisition only. That's it. Everything else, customer service was obviously, going through the floor. Everything else didn't matter as long as they kept going with expensive, as we know, it's expensive to acquire customers, customer acquisition. So, I kind of I finished my piece with them there, and I went on to do another gig. But the point is that there are a lot of companies that just won't even consider Winback. They just reject it for no logical reason, because
Hmm.
think of what could be a logical reason to say no. I can't think of one. So uh, I think I think it comes down to on one part emotion, a challenge to the people that are actually going to do the win back, or fear of what might happen. But I think there's also a blinkered view. We're not going to look at win back because this is all we do. This is all we do, and we carry on doing what we've always done, and we get what we always got. But business has changed. The world has changed. So customers are going off and doing their own thing now. Other companies that are still doing the customer acquisition approach are pouring more money into those customers, and they're leaking out the back door.
Yeah, there's, it's so important now, like more, I think now more than ever, that companies generate as much profit as possible, right? The days of cheap money from your VC or from your private equity groups, those are just going down and down and down. As a matter of fact, I had a client yesterday, and they're under a tremendous amount of pressure now to generate a profit, and so that's why we were why we're working together, because Winback is so inexpensive. And the other huge benefit of Winback is it dramatically reduces churn, or at least it can dramatically reduce churn. So it's this big double hit, right? You get a lot of fresh revenue with a very low cost of acquisition, and requires much fewer resources, right? Because so much of the work has already been done. Plus, what you learn out of Winback, you reduce churn, which is actually an even bigger contributor to increasing profits. But I just want to say two things about what you just mentioned about why companies don't do things. I just thought maybe just add two more. One is certainty. People want certainty, and if they started the company and it was done on acquisition, and it was founded on acquisition, well, of course, every new company is, right? That becomes the sales culture. They're certain of their process. They've worked on it over the years. They've optimized it, and they know that. But win back is the unknown. They don't know what it's going to do. So somebody's got to put political capital out there and say, let's try this. We're going to divert some resources from what we're doing. And what if it doesn't work? So this lack of certainty is one thing. And the other thing is political. you know, Even if the CEO goes to it becomes convinced, now they've got to go to the board Or if it's a sales, the CRO or something, they've got to, if they go, whoever you go to your higher up. So if you're the CRO, you say, we've got to try this win back thing. It's got real potential. Let's give it a test. Let's see how it works for our company. So we got real numbers to see, what it can do. And the CEO could say, well, if it's so great, why weren't you doing that all along? And it's just like, what if they're afraid of that? What if they're afraid of, like, if this is so good and it's been around for decades, why haven't you done it before? And same thing with a CEO going to the board or going to the VC. So, that's another fear, right?
Yeah, I get that. And having worked in agile transformations, many of those in the past, people are afraid of change. They're afraid of doing something different that could show them up for doing something bad in the past or doing it badly in the past. And it's the blame fear that a lot of people act on, and so they act negatively. But I think if there was a way to overcome that, if we could find a way to overcome those fears and put those fears to one side, the political one, that's going to be a challenge, because that's not going to go away easily. I think the only thing that might address that is hard evidence in their own business. If someone gets the opportunity, whether it's authorized or not, to run a small win-back campaign and show the results, then maybe when people see that, right, that we want some more of that. So I think the political one is always going to be a challenge, but certainly with everything else, there's no reason why companies shouldn't focus on this. It's just money. I know you've used this expression before, money left on the table. It really is. And the rewards for it are immense. I feel very passionate about it because obviously that's how we met. I've experienced win back. So I was attracted to what you were doing. And I fully support what you're doing because I think more people should know about this. And if they don't do win back, there's only one thing that's going to happen. Their competitors are going to be benefiting from their inaction. And that's the fact. That's the whole purpose of win back, isn't it? That the customers have gone to the competitors. Are we going to get them back? Or are we going to waste more money in customer acquisition that's very, very costly? And there's no certainty in that. I would imagine that there is far more certainty in reacquiring customers than there would be in acquiring strangers. Of course there is.
Of course there is. There's, it's, they've already shown a desire for your category or for your product, and they've chosen you above everybody else. Like, even for the people that you've educated enough, they've responded to your ad or your outreach, and you've been put in the consideration set. Well, these people have not only been put in the consideration set, they chose you above everybody else. So there's something special about you, your product, your messaging. There's something there that you're offering that somebody else isn't. So, my God, where is there a higher probability than that of generating a sale versus cold?
Exactly. One of the things that really struck me reading the book was, on top of all the benefits we've discussed, was the transformative nature of Winback. And you just hinted at it there. Because in order to do win back, your customer service is probably going to have to improve, because you're going to have to correct the things that were causing problems in the past. It could be other things as well, but it gives the business a chance to look at their business and say, well, what's in it for them? Our customers are our lost customers. What are we doing wrong? What do we need to do right? What do we need to correct to keep them and to acquire more customers? Because it has that positive impact on acquisition as well.
It makes the entire business stronger. But we can talk about the acquisition first. So whoever knows the customer best wins, right? So we do all kinds of research into who our best prospects are. We do all this optimization on our ads and our outreach. So we know a lot about our prospects and how to win them. We know a lot about our customers, right? We talk to them, we survey them, we invite them into conversations with our customer success manager, et cetera. So we know a lot about those two, but we don't know about customers who've left. When we get a deep understanding of why they left and what it'll take to win them back, we're going to learn things about our business that we never knew. A current customer can't tell you anywhere near as well of why they'll leave as a customer who's actually left. you know. So we've got to talk to customers who've left, and I can, talk about the process of that. But the point is that if you learn why customers are leaving, we think we know things about our customers, and we don't. Nicholas Epley, he's a professor at University of Chicago, um, and he did a study, and it found that for people we know, we're only right about what they're thinking or what their motivations are 20% of the time. And even for people that we know really well, like our parents or spouse, we're only right 30% of the time. So for even people we know really well, we're wrong 2/3 of the time. So why don't we get real, direct, lost customer feedback to find out why they left and what it'll take to win them back? We might find that there's 3 core reasons for churn. Maybe it's something very simple. Maybe it's like price, customer service, and competitors offering something you're not offering. Well, what we find is you can typically cut churn by 20% because you can mitigate those. When you talk to people, you dig a little bit deeper. Well, it was only this type of customer service, and you mitigate that or you fix that, right? I mean, if it's a real, there's issues you can fix, and there's issues you can't fix, and there's issues in between. And we find that you can fix at least 1/5 of that. So you can reduce churn by at least 20%. And that's first pass. The other thing is when you ask them what it'll take to win them back, there's certain things you'll be able to fulfill. Like you'll know this is what I need to do. Guessing what it'll take to win somebody back and actually asking them are 2 very different things. So you've got this information, and it's basically theoretical. It's intentional, right? It's what they would intend to do. They would intend to come you back if you did this. So the first thing is you find holes in your leaky sales bucket that you weren't aware of before, or you find more nuanced, get a much more nuanced understanding of it. So there's more things that you can fix. The other thing is that, so you've got all this insight, right? You reach out to your lost customers and you get this insight. Now, it makes your business stronger because now you've seen things you didn't see before, so you can fix them. Then what you do is you do a test win back campaign, you fix what is fixable, you create whatever you can to win them back, and which is often way simpler than it sounds, by the way I've just described it. And then you do a test win back campaign, and then you find people actually came back or didn't come back, right? So you reach out to them, you find out why the people who bought, and you find out why the people who didn't buy. And now this is real. Now they were actually in that situation and they bought. And they might not have bought for the reasons that you thought they bought. So you've got to find those things and upgrade your messaging or shift your offer to kind of like zero in on it a little bit more. And so you've got your data that they tell you, and then you see how they actually act, and you can just keep optimizing your campaign like that. So your business becomes a lot stronger, right? Because you've identified potential churn. You've been able to actually test it in the real world. You've found new ways of getting people. Found value that you can deliver to win those people back, and then you apply that to your current customers, right? You apply that to your prospects, and your whole business gets up leveled.
What I really love about that is that you are actually in communication with your ex-customers, actually people-to-people relationships, building those. And there's something in the agile space that we use, a metric that we use is how long since we last had contact with our customer. And of course, you want that number to be as small as possible. And perhaps the reason that these customers have been lost is because they've not been nurtured, they've not been spoken to before they left, and disgruntled and they went. But the beautiful thing is, I can see on the human side, you're rebuilding that, you're repairing the holes in that relationship. And even if they don't come back there and then, they will, you said about the peak end rule, they will leave with a better feeling about your business than they had before, because you've reached out to them, you've shown empathy, you've shown you care, you've acted on the feedback that they've given you. I mean, that's one of the most important things. If you can provide them the social proof that the evidence we've done this or we're actively doing it, it shows that you care. And I think that will have a knock-on effect. Even if that customer doesn't come back, they will be more likely to say, well, we didn't have a great experience, but we had a great follow-up. The customer service was far better than we've ever experienced. Maybe you should give them a try. And it comes back to everything that people are saying now about customer experience. It's all about them. It's all about them, not us. It's all about them. And this is coming through very strongly, the people part, the emotional part of the activities behind Winback. I think that's its strongest part, because it's about people. And the numbers are crazy, ridiculous, brilliant, wonderful. And you know, what more could you want to put those two things together? Amazing.
Yeah. Before we go, you've got to tell your Winback story. It's brilliant.
Okay. So I was working for a food importer back in the day. It was one of my first proper jobs, and it was a bit boring. I used to buy canned goods from all over the world, tomatoes from Italy, Bulgaria, Spain, fruit products and things like that. And we'd sell them into big wholesalers and supermarkets. I could see that the people in the sales team, the people that were going out and dealing with the customers, they were driving flash cars. They had Ford XR2Is and nice suits and all the stuff. And I thought, well, that just seemed more glamorous than what I was doing. I knew and accounted for every single penny to bring one can of tomatoes and put it on the shelf in Tesco. I knew every single number to go with that and the margins we made, but I didn't have all these fancy things that the salespeople had. So I kept badgering my boss, the purchasing director. He was not interested. I said, I just want to have a go at sales. And eventually, I think, just to get rid of, put me onto someone else and make me their problem, he told me to go and speak to the sales manager, and he would actually, maybe give me a few old customers that I could play with. And I remember when we had those old, I don't know what you call them, Rolodex filing systems. And he got these 6 cards out and he picked them one by one, looked at them and he was saying, yep, dead. Oh, that one's probably buried as well. Yeah, you can have these. You can't do any damage there, Carl. That was kind of the attitude. And I was so delighted, so hungry, because I thought, wow, I can go out and talk to these people. And I was thinking XR2I and flash suits and all these things. But you're from Little Acorns. So, the first customer was the first one I went into, and they're a major wholesaler. I'd made the appointment to go and see them, and they kind of poured their heart out. I wasn't expecting to get an ear bashing. I didn't know what to expect. I was quite young and a bit tough as well. So I thought, well, if they are a bit angry, it wouldn't be a problem. And I just basically listened. And they literally poured their heart out on how they hadn't been looked after, in many ways disrespected. Their business wasn't valuable enough to our business. And they'd been just left to dwindle and nothing happened. So I had the conversation with them, got them back into the idea of working with us, and put it to them, well, what if we were to try and do a deal now? And one thing led to another, won their trust. I was able to cut a deal because I knew every single penny that it would cost us to deliver them the product. So I was able to, work out, it wasn't a ridiculous price, but it was a fair price. And I managed to sell them 20 containers of canned tomatoes from Italy. Now, the average sale that a salesperson would make would be 3, at a sitting with a customer. A great sale would be 6 containers, but these were 20-foot containers full of tomatoes. And so when I took this order back to the company, thinking, well, maybe I'll become sales director one day or whatever. I thought they're going to be pleased. Well, of course, when I got back, poo hit the fan, and I was dragged into the chairman's office, and he was the owner of the business as well. It was a very old-fashioned, established business. And the sales manager was dragged in, the sales director was dragged in, and all hell broke loose. And what they said is, there is no way Adamson should have been able to have gone in there and done that deal. What went wrong? And the sales manager tried to explain, well, the customer was dead, they hadn't bought anything for a long time. How did he do it? And this was the thing. And so they were angry that I'd been able to go in and do that. I'd just gone in and do what I do now and listen and show empathy and ask for forgiveness. All the things that are emotional ties to Winback. And it worked. But so the sales manager nearly got fired. I nearly got fired. The sales director would have been hauled over the coals, no doubt, for that in private. It was a big glass office as well, so everyone was kind of watching, And so that was for me the after effect of that. What wasn't great, but I was so pleased, and I went off and did exactly the same with the other 5 leads that I'd been given. And that's why I was saying earlier, it is about showing empathy, showing that emotion, pulling on those heartstrings, and saying, well, I do care. I can help you. I will move heaven and earth to get you back in with us and liking us. And so that's my story. But the reason that they weren't doing Winback was because that's not the way we do things around here. We don't do that kind of thing. And it was a big shame, but it was a big eye-opener for me, and what a great experience. Even telling the story, I'm reliving it and enjoy. So I can imagine how people must feel when they go through that stage. They get that win back. They start winning back that business. It's an amazing boost. It's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, I remember that first win back. I mean, that literally changed the whole trajectory of what I focused on in that business. And I told all my friends about it. Because in 20 years of marketing, I hadn't really come across anything super new and exciting, right? Like, we had built partnerships in that company. That's how we got so many customers. We had, we had everything nailed down. And this was like, wow, there is something new. Because, it's always like in sales, there's, nothing new under the sun since like 1850, but, and Winback isn't new. And, one of the, it was interesting. Before I started getting into Winback, I reached out to the author of that Winback book, Jill Griffin. I saw her on LinkedIn, and I said, I'm so enthralled with Winback. I discovered your book a little bit late, and this is your bailiwick, so I don't want to step on your toes, but I just wanted to see what you thought about me, getting into this. And she said, go nuts. We need to spread the word on this, so do whatever you think. She was on the board of an NSE and New York Stock Exchange company, and she said, I'm not doing this anymore. And so, go for it. And she also told me that when she wrote her book, her with Michael Lowenstein, they had to delay the book the release of the book for over a year from when they planned on it, because so few people would talk about their win-back programs. And they saw it as their secret sauce. And, that's why I'm so grateful to people like you who share these stories, because this is, maybe that inspiration that you just gave just took people up like, 1/10 of the way to get there, a little bit closer. A lot of companies see this as their secret sauce. They don't talk about it. And here you are talking about it. So thank you for that.
My pleasure. I'm really, I'm a great fan of what you do. I've seen how it works and experienced that for myself. And I really am frustrated that so many businesses reject Winback because they think they're doing something that's better. And what they don't realize is not just the ridiculous return on investment that is possible and the lifetime value of the customers that they win back. It's the transformative effect on their business because they've done Winback. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't ask for anything more than that. I mean, that is just absolutely amazing. So I'm keen to promote this as much as you are, because it's important that people know about this. It's important that they overcome the way we do things around here, the corporate culture and the politics, because this is their money that they have lost and they can win it back. But when they don't, they're just giving it to their competitors, and the competitors saying, well, thanks very much. I guess the competitors saying, well, we don't want you to read Dan's book. We don't want you to find out about Winback because we're happy. So I mean, with the book, people listening to this will be saying, well, yeah, I can get this book. And you did say the book is free for 2 days, the 30th and 31st of October, 2024. and there'll be details. We can give details on how they can get that. That will be on Amazon, wouldn't it? Or is that directly through your
Amazon
website?
only. The only way I can give away a book on a platform like Amazon is to do it exclusively through them for 90
Okay.
days. Yeah.
That's fantastic. That really is fantastic offering for anyone. But they'll be listening to this and they'll be saying, well, what's in it for me? Why should I read the book? What am I going to get from the book?
It'll be a whole new perspective on revenue generation. It'll be my goal is by writing it as a story where you can walk through this person's steps and the beauty of story is that we put ourselves into the story. So as you walk through this journey, the journey of our hero, you're going step by step from having these business issues to learning about Winback to going through Winback. The book goes step by step in detail exactly how to do Winback, and then we see after the test campaign how things are changed. Then after the rollout, how things are made even better. Then how we double Winback revenue, in a follow up campaign. So you really get the feeling. My hope is that it's visceral for some people. Some people, the light will be turned on and say, "Oh my God, this is so obvious. I should have been doing this all along." That's what I'm hoping for.
I think it's a book that they'll also be able to give to their managers and business leaders to get them excited about Winback. I think that's a really that's a benefit of a book. It's something that is valued, and people will actually read that, and they'll be hooked. Once they've read it, they will be hooked. If we kind of were to, is there anything here that we haven't covered that you'd like to cover?
No, the idea is that your past customers, they're the low-hanging fruit in your business. They cost less to acquire than a new customer, got a very high win rate, lifetime value doubles, improve your brand reputation because instead of all these people, the unhappy people or not happy people, not nearly as many of them are saying bad things about you. So when you go in to make a deal, you're not carrying all that baggage. So yeah, I think we said it all.
So if there was one thing that someone listening to this podcast could take away with them about Winback and about your book, what would that be?
Relationships are sticky. Somebody who appreciated what you had before, it's not that difficult to get them to appreciate you again. So that's a very small gap to bridge, and be confident that it can be scaled because many people have scaled it before you.
Wonderful. I think there's no doubt that you are the maestro of Winback. And if anyone wants to contact you, how do they do that?
Winback Labs, Dan at Winback Labs is probably the fastest, easiest way to get directly to me.
So that's Dan at winbacklabs.com.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. You're on LinkedIn as well? Would you like people?
I am on LinkedIn. I am off and on. I am active, and I've got a number of articles on LinkedIn that give you good insight into Winback.
And you have your own podcast as well. Tell us about that.
I do. It's called the Winback Marketing Podcast, and it features people like you who've done successful Winback campaigns. And there's just so many great stories. There's so much nuance to this, to making it work, and why people don't do it. And I think there's a lot of inspirational stories there.
There are, and inspirational people. I've connected with quite a few of them, and they're all remarkable, not just in Winback, but in everything else that they do as well. So it's we put all the links in the show notes so that people have got that. And the book is out on the 30th of October 2024.
Yes.
And it will be free on Amazon for how many days did you say?
For 2 days. And it's the Kindle version that we're giving away for free, the digital version. And just if somebody goes there early and they see the book there, well, I have to put the book up. They won't let me put the book up the first day for free. That's why I just have to release it a couple of days before. But you get it free on October 30th.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, Dan. I've really enjoyed spending time in your company. I forgot I was interviewing you. It just felt like a chat, and a chat about something we're both passionate about. And I really look forward to seeing how this book is going to impact so many people, their lives. and their businesses.
Well, I really appreciate all your support, Carl. I'm very grateful. I'm very, very grateful.
It really is my pleasure, Dan. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Delivery with Agility podcast. Check out the show notes for links to resources and further information. And feel free to subscribe to ensure that you don't miss out on future episodes.